Hello, adventurers. My name's Tyler.
And I'm Richard.
And I'm Garrett.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about some of the things we really like and really dislike about the newest 2024 revision to the D&D Player's Handbook. Welcome to True Strike.
Howdy, folks, and welcome back to the show.
Howdy.
We are here to talk about the 2024 Player's Handbook with our good friend, Garrett.
Hi, guys. I'm part of the show today.
Who's back in the studio. I think it's the first time we've been in the studio together, right?
That's right. I believe the last time I was here was to fill in
out
for you.
me. Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Which I thought was going to be for this episode because of the con nastiness that I got, which was the upgraded con crud.
I had the basic package.
Oh, yeah.
And he went full premium.
Yeah, I went for the premium package of the COVID test.
Yep.
So, yeah, no, that was good fun.
Garrett dodged it, actually. He was watching people break dance at the Olympics.
Oh,
That's
so
okay.
much more fun than Gen Con, right?
Why do we got to talk about this, guys? You're making me sad. Listen, I really wanted to go. I had plans to go, but I work for an NBC affiliate, and the Olympics were this year, and they happened to overlap, so I couldn't get out of work.
That's a horrible excuse.
And so
There's always the 51st anniversary.
The worst part about it, thank you for reminding me about that too. The worst part about it was that, I don't get me wrong, the Olympics is fun. Watching Simone Biles win a bunch of medals is fun, and the swimmers are all great. But the breaking stuff was man, what an Olympics to have to cover this year. There's anyway.
But while you were covering the Olympics, we were covering Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah.
So, arguably equally earth-shattering events, So, on today's episode, though, next week, we will be giving our full thoughts and review, at least review so far, but review of the Player's Handbook here. Note and grain of salt to all this. Review copies were provided by WOTC to Richard and I. Garrett's were paid for by himself. So,
I paid.
Yes, and Wizards did not pay us or anything like that to review this. They simply gave us the book. We're under no contractual obligation or anything like that to say anything fancy. We will give negative thoughts, of course. But yes, if you don't trust us, Garrett paid for it with cash.
Yep.
So,
And I was told I'm not allowed to say anything bad. What? No? Was that
no
not what you guys
curse
were
words.
saying?
It's different.
Oh, right. That was the curse word thing. Got it.
So on today's episode, we will be giving positive and negative thoughts. Unfortunately, I have not finished reading the book. So what we're doing is Richard and Garrett are going to be giving positive, negative thoughts. I am judging whose is better point, and I am going to keep score over here.
Oh,
And
well, this is a debate show. I like
Yes.
this actually.
so
Well, now I feel like I have to change some of my
no,
choices.
just make sure you keep your your opinions locked and loaded for.
I've already got my opinions locked and loaded, and I ranked them based
Perfect.
on my.
So make sure you
I
pull
made my rankers,
and
so.
if it's a strong opinion or not to counteract his, and we'll see who wins this. We'll bounce back and forth
Why are
too,
we
so it's
deciding
not
who
always
goes first.
easily. You guys are gonna roll for it.
I knew it.
Rollies?
Yeah. Oh, this is a big one too. What's my bonus to argue?
0.
Dang it.
That's
11.
11.
It's a
Richard,
little
you add
over
3 to
average.
this.
11 is solid.
I'm kidding. That's
Not
a
as solid
7.
as a
Even
7.
with a +3, it's only a 10.
Yeah.
Wait, why does he get a +3?
Well,
Welcome to True Strike.
All right. So Garrett, I will give you the option. Would you
Okay.
like to go first or second?
What do
I
we-
think I want to go second.
What are we leading with? Likes or dislikes?
So second,
Yeah.
Richard, likes or dislikes?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
I want to lead with a like.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm gonna lead with a like.
Beginning or earliest convenience.
Oh, do you want me to lead with my my lowest like or my highest like?
This is where, so you're competing with Garrett, right? So if you come out and unload your chamber with your biggest caliber, rounds, you might not have as strong of a game at the end of it, right?
What?
Now we're playing. There's a whole game.
There's
to
a
this,
whole,
Richard.
yeah, there's a winner and a loser.
I didn't know this was a game. I've got to re-rank things.
You just told me things
okay,
are ranked.
fine. I'm gonna
So
leave it the way that
you
it is.
just tell me. You don't even tell me which is your best. You're gonna throw me one. He's gonna throw one.
Okay. All right. So I guess I'm going first then, right?
Yes.
And I'm starting with a like, is what I said, right?
Yep.
Okay. So my first thing that I like about this book, I have actually over the last year been reading a lot of TTRPG systems.
That's true.
I've been reading a lot of different books from a lot of different makers and everything like that. And this book has something that was a one-up on all of them. And that was their use of flowcharts. I really love that about this book. So right when you get in, they're telling you about how to do things in the game, specifically things like combat or just basic scenarios for skill tests and everything like that. And they spell this out very, very well compared to every other book that I've looked at this year. They're giving you actual flowcharts of how to play the game. And that is super useful because it actually within the last 2 months, I've got to go to Reddit to try and figure out a system for a game because I read the book, and while technical and probably everything was there, couldn't really get a handle on how combat was really supposed to flow. And I wasn't comfortable with it to play that game without having that flow of the game down pat. And the book wasn't helping me at all.
Was this Dreams and Machines?
It was.
Okay.
How did you know?
I
Dreams and Machines. I wasn't going to call them out. But now
Modiphius,
you
fix your
did.
game. No.
Wow.
But yes, no,
It's a
their
great game.
Their combat is really cool, but it's not readily apparent when you're reading about it how you're supposed to go about things.
Mhm.
And if they would have included something like this in their book, it would have demystified that entire thing. I had to find this, but not through Modiphius. I had to find this on a Reddit thread where somebody was all like, hey, this might be helpful for you guys learning how to do combat in Dreams and Machines. This is a flowchart of how things go. And that was one of the first things that I noticed about this book when I started reading it was the inclusion of those flowcharts. Chef's kiss.
This game, especially
Love it.
starting off with like chapter 1, playing the game, rad for actually showing you how to play the game and the examples of going through of like, here's your GM or your DM in this case. Here's your DM. Here's a player. This player does this. DM says this. All right, guys, hold up a minute, one at a time. Stuff like that is great for showing new players how to actually run this for the first time.
And WOTC's been very vocal about this being the first player's handbook to actually teach you how to play the game.
Yes.
Mhm.
Right.
Yep.
And that's really cool. I actually really like this point. There are 24 pages at the start of this book from page 7 to 31 filled with just examples of how to play. There's examples for exploration, social, and combat. It's really, really a great presentation for people
Mhm.
who have no idea what they're doing
Yep.
when they step into the first, for many people, this is their first TTRPG because it's the biggest name that, when people think of
Yeah,
rolling dice at a
game.
tabletop game, they're thinking of Dungeons and Dragons primarily. So that's actually, it's a great point. And
Yep.
that is a really, really cool thing that they did here.
Question for both of you then. Reading this as people who are experienced playing Dungeons and Dragons at this point, was it boring going through and reading this little bit, learning how to play air quotes when you already know how to play?
So that's the other thing that I like about their flowcharts is it wasn't boring to me because of the way they set it up. They don't just set it up as in like this is like an A, B, and C that happens. They set it up as in like this is this person Tommy who's playing Gerald the Slayer, and this is what he's doing on his turn, and then kind of goes back and forth. So they tee it up as kind of like you reading the story of these people playing, and even the accompanying artwork with the flowcharts shows you the players around a table and the characters, like a lot of times
they're
juxtaposed
playing,
with
yeah.
them, the characters they're playing. Even like there's I think one piece of artwork where the DM is playing somebody in a tavern and they're both in the same position. So the NPC in his artwork is in the same position as the DM who's explaining the scene in the same position. So no, it wasn't boring to me at all. I thought it was really cool.
I do think there are parts of it where I was like, I kind of glossed over a little bit.
Yeah.
Mostly because, again, I know what I'm
it.
doing for the most
Yeah.
part. And
How proficiency
I-
bonus works.
I skimmed, for example, a lot of the saving throws, damage types, healing, immunities, all that stuff. I skimmed to see, is there anything different here? No, there's not. Okay, I don't really need to read through all this. But to Richard's point, yes, the flow charts with the little story, because the best part about it is that, so it's in the 2014 book, there are examples where they give you little blurbs of, the DM narrates this and they say what they want to do, but it's little small parts of a page. It's nothing major. Now here, the flowchart is told in a story format where you can kind of see what they're doing, who's talking, when they're talking, how they're talking. But then there's also numbers next to each and every one of these that then point you to, this is the rule that's being used in this example. So that I read through all of these, even though I didn't read through the entire section itself in the front. And I actually really found this really fun to read, even though I knew everything, because it's just a really cool example of like how to show someone the rules in a way that is more narrative rather than mechanical.
Right.
And I think that's a really, really strong part of this book.
Okay. Before we get to Garrett's first like, hi, video watchers. I am not actually this small, and they are not this massive. It's forced perspective in the best way. I feel like a halfling, especially if I sit down, like it just wee. Okay, that's it. Garrett, your first like to rebuttal almost. Just fire across the bow. I wish I had like a battleship like wall.
Little animated effects.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna play this like the game that it is.
Oh.
Because I have likes and dislikes, but mine are a little bit. I specifically prepared ones to try and avoid overlap, so I picked little smaller ones that I thought maybe nobody would pick up on.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna save those for last. I'm gonna get the ones I think you might want to get on your turn to lock you off from it earlier. And this is actually truly one of my favorite things.
And this
about
is one of your likes, right?
This is one of my likes. One of my favorite things about this book is I'm going to call it martial complexity.
Oh.
What I mean by this is for anyone who has played 2014 version of Dungeons and Dragons, in fact, for anyone who's played Dungeons and Dragons, period, outside of maybe 4th edition, there is this discussion about the martial caster divide, which is what the internet likes to call it, which is casters get to solve a lot of problems and do a lot of things because spells are so versatile. And then marshals get to swing a sword and end their turn. And that's pretty much the gameplay loop. And they have done so much to make marshals more complex, which I know is like, well, but we just talked about how good this is for new players. Doesn't that seem like it's kind of not what you want from a new player perspective? And I say, in a way, yes, but there are still easy accesses to getting into the game. Like the fighter class is still fairly simple, but now it has weapon masteries, and weapon masteries now give you more complexity to use with your martial character. So now you don't feel like you're just, okay, my turn's up, I swing twice, I hit, I do damage, and then I'm done. Now I get to maybe topple somebody. Now I get to maybe push them around. Maybe I get to push them off a cliff and they fall down and don't know how Misty Step works, and so they can't save themselves, or Featherfall, or whatever the case is. So now there's more things to do. Barbarian gets Brutal Strike, Rogue gets Cunning Strike. The Paladin and the Ranger both have half spellcasting progression, so they can add some spells like their Smite spells or Hunter's Mark. So now every martial has something cool and interesting to do throughout their turn. Because the worst part about introducing a new player is that most people are going to say, hey, you're new, let's make you a fighter so it's just simple and easy to get into. And then that new player gets to a table, and the veteran player is a spellcaster, they're a wizard, and they're like, I'm going to cast slow on all my enemies, and then I'm going to use a reaction to counterspell this guy, and I'm going to fireball this group. And then you're like, wow, that's really cool. What does my character get to do? Well, you see, you have a sword, and you can stab one goblin. Oh, cool. Yeah, that sucks. So it's nice that they gave marshals things to do. And that is my number one, whether it be weapon properties with the weapon mastery system, whether it be the cunning strikes and the brutal strikes, whether it be tactical master and the fighter getting to be even more of a master of weapons than any of the other classes. There's just now so much meat on martial bone where I don't have to feel bad for suggesting that to new players to say, this is what you're playing because you don't know how to play, rather than this is what you're playing because it's a fun option.
Yep. Which I completely agree with, and was also one of the things that I had written down in my notes too. It wasn't one of the ones that made it onto my list though. But if you recall, what was the last text that I sent you about this book, which was straight up, I'm ready to play a fighter now.
Yes.
Hey.
Yes, it was.
Is what I said because of all of this. Now fighters are something that I am ready to play now. There's something that I want to dig into because there are so many cool things to do now with a fighter, especially when you're looking at some of the new subclasses. You just hit the one that I'm going to be playing. I love it. I'm really excited about playing a fighter now, just because I want all this really cool new toy box to play with.
A fighter is a great example of exactly what I'm talking about, because anyone who played a fighter in 5th edition, 2014, almost every fighter was a battle master, because the battle master gave you that complexity that everybody was looking for.
Yeah.
And now you can play a champion, and sure, you're not getting all the maneuvers, but you are getting all those weapon masteries. So now your champion can topple and push and all these
they're
different
maneuvers.
things. They're basically like light maneuvers. They're miniature maneuvers. And then if you want to have a complex experience where you get the full suite, you can still do the Battle Master.
Yep.
But now if you're a newer player, you get that complexity, but you can also still play a champion and feel good about it. And it's still a simple option for you, but at the same time, you have things to do. And that's one of my, if not my favorite things about this new book.
It's definitely one of the biggest and best changes from this book for me. Is it, like you mentioned, it closes that chasm,
Right.
So
And it's not fully closed.
No, of
but
course.
it's like it's more narrow. Now instead of the Grand Canyon, it's like, I don't have a good example or a metaphor here, but now it's like a crack in the door instead.
like
it's way better.
a major canyon, like minor canyon.
A little canyon.
It's just a canyon.
It's
Yeah,
it's
just
that
a
side
just-
of Hitchcock's Foodways parking lot they just refuse to fix.
I
Right.
feel like that is such a
Yeah.
specific reference that no one else is going to get.
They all get it.
Okay.
All right. So I'm not going to tell you who gets the point because then you guys are going to start counting cards.
I already do.
Yo. All right. Garrett, give me one of your dislikes.
Ooh, okay, we're going this way.
Okay.
All right.
I was already loaded. I was ready to go.
You-
You're
Garrett's not going
switching it up
second the
on
rest
me.
of the game.
Gosh. All
I
right,
was also
all right.
kind of prepping my more likes. I was like, this is going to catch me off the guard a little bit. To piggyback off of that discussion, one of my dislikes is I feel like they could have gone a little bit farther in terms of major spell changes. As we just mentioned, marshals and casters, there's such a big difference between the two. And they boosted marshals, and they did do a few trimming of the fat on problematic spells to kind of help bring casters down a little bit. But I just don't think they went far enough. Great examples here, for example, of things that they did really well. Animate Objects was a spell that was incredibly powerful before. You could, as a, 9th level, I believe is when you get them, use a 9th level wizard, you could animate 10 daggers and each of them acted on the turn. So now all of a sudden your wizard gets like 11 attacks in the turn and they can do a lot of damage if even half of them hit. And now Animate Objects is way more simple. It's just a specific stat block. It's not just here's animating 10 daggers. Now instead, I believe it's a number of like 2 or 3, I think at most, right? Way better, easier to play at the table, not
Sure.
quite as overpowered. The same can be said of all of the conjure spells, right? Conjure animals used
Conjure
to be,
elementals.
yeah, we'll get there. Conjure animals used to do like a whole pack of wolves. Now it doesn't do that. It's much easier to manage. Those are good changes. But there are other changes, or not changes, where I'm like, that's still a little too much. Like, for example, Wall of Force is incredibly strong and still doesn't require much of anything from the caster's end to make effective. Liamon's Tiny Hut is still a very easy thing to just set up in the middle of a hallway and then sit inside of for however long, and now
Yeah.
all your enemies are like, well, we can't do anything to you. What do we do? We don't know. So that's like, there are still corner cases where I just wish they would have gone a little bit further, right? Simulacrum, they changed it so that you can't do multiple simulacrums by having the simulacrum cast simulacrum. Well, they almost changed it because the wish spell can still do this. So they fixed one of them, but not the other one. So now you just have to do the whole loophole through a different means. And so, like, that's what I mean. Is like you could have just done a little bit more to change the spells in the right direction to maybe lower caster power just a tiny bit.
Do you feel like maybe some of this was because they had to get the book out for the 50th?
I don't know, honestly. I truly don't. Certainly Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast as companies are probably like, would be really nice to capitalize on the 50th anniversary.
I mean, it's on the back of the book.
But the thing about it is that the Monster Manual comes out next year.
Yeah.
So if they really needed more time with the Player's Handbook, they could have had this come out in November, and the Dungeon Master's Guide could have come out next year instead.
Sure.
So they could have still cooked this longer if they really needed the time crunch. I don't know if it's so much as that or more of like a case of let's get it to a really good place and then we can start working on new things also.
Because it's February, right? For the Monster Manual? Am I remember that
Yes,
correctly?
February currently.
Is that still their fiscal year?
Great question. I have no idea. I am not a
'Cause
business major.
I'm wondering
unfortunately.
because I know a lot of companies that usually ends March, April, something like that.
Could be.
So I'm
Yeah.
wondering if it's still just catching the
Could
tail
be.
end of that.
Yeah.
But I
could
mean, they
be.
also could have just dropped all 3 books at the same time if
Totally.
they really wanted to still
To make
get
you
extra
happy.
time. No, I mean, but like just to get extra time if they really needed it.
Yeah.
And so maybe it is. Maybe it's a case of Hasbro saying we need to get them out. We need to lay them out like this. I don't know for sure.
It's just the 5th edition again. Change it for the 6th.
Right. But that being said, I do think that I think that also part of it is as game designers, right? At a certain point, they're probably because they've admitted this pretty publicly that Fireball does more damage than it's supposed to at 3rd level because it's meant to be overpowered, right? That's the idea. People cast Fireball thinking it's an overpowered spell.
Right.
So maybe that's just how they're going to approach some of these spells. Maybe they're like, you know what? Wish doesn't need to be completely looped together so that it doesn't have any exploits because it's
I agree.
Wish, right? They're like, that's part of the game.
Yeah.
And they did so, Force Cage was a very obvious power spell that they did fix, right? But then they also didn't really fix Hypnotic Pattern at all. So that's my thing is they did enough in a lot of places, but not necessarily enough in the spell section for me.
Richard, negative thought and opinion about this book.
A negative thought. This one, I don't know that everybody's going to agree with this one.
We don't have to.
Yeah, because it's probably something that a lot of people think of as fat that needed to be trimmed and overcomplicated the game a little bit.
Oh.
But I like and I enjoy this aspect, and that is, as I was reading through, one of the first questions that popped into my head is, where are my skill contests? Where'd they go? They're gone. They've been removed. Is this something that they just took out of the player's handbook because they don't want the players to know about, and it maybe is going to be in the DMG? I don't think so. I think they just took them out because I think they see it as fat to be trimmed and over complicating the game unnecessarily, perhaps. But I think there's a lot of flavor to be had there, to have an actual skill contest. And I think, I don't know, I think it just takes away of a little bit of soul of the game, right? Because you know how I like to play my games. I mean, we role play Fast and the Furious, the board game.
He's not wrong.
Are you supposed to role play that game? Depends on who you ask. If you ask us, absolutely.
It makes it so much better.
I'm sure Vin Diesel loves that you roleplay it.
Yeah, you have to. It's family. And when I play a game, I like to interject a little bit more soul into it and a little bit more interaction. And I think that skill contests gave that. I think that it was a unique thing to have people rolling off to, to see if something is successful. And I think it makes a lot of sense when you're looking at rolling dice and playing a game like this in a TTRPG.
Versus just meeting a number.
Versus just meeting a number and hitting it. Yeah, I think it's a little bit more fun for that thing to come across. And you see it in actual plays that you watch and stuff like that, where people are having a skill contest between 2 players. And they're super fun moments all the time.
Sure.
And they're intense sometimes. And sometimes they're very meaningful. And I know why they did it. Like I said, I think that they're trying to just streamline the game and make it a lot easier for a new player to come in. But to me, it seems kind of pointless to kill this because it's not that complicated. And it's actually a super easy thing to grasp. And I think that it's even more appealing, I would say, to somebody who's not in the TTRPG aspect of things to kind of have that as something in a game, because it shows you a little bit more on how you can play and how you can do that interaction with everybody.
I'm really, really interested in hearing Garrett's thoughts on this.
And like I said, I think that I might be on an island on this one.
I
but
can
maybe
tell
not.
you you're not on an island, because until Garrett changes my mind, I'm with you.
I understand this sentiment and this feeling, and I think that it is largely based in nostalgia for how these things have been handled in the past.
Don't change my game, Garrett.
But I actually do disagree with you, not because I don't see merit in skill contests. I do. But I agree with the designer intent here, which is simply this. A skill check is something you actively do, whereas a saving throw is something that is done to you. One of the best examples of skill challenges, if I'm understanding what you're talking about in the 2014 book, is grappling, right? Grappling
That's a good one, yeah.
is normally an athletics check from the grappler versus an acrobatics or an athletics check from the grapplee.
Yeah, the option
yeah.
there for the grappling.
Right.
Yeah.
And that is, you both roll this skill, and whoever's better at it, quote unquote, is going to win this. The thing about it is the D20 is a very big die, right? There's a whole 20 sides to it, which is 20 different outcomes. It doesn't matter if you have a +6 to grapple and they have a +2 if you roll a 4 and they rolled a 12, right? So in that sense, making it this kind of skill contest becomes less about how good of a grappler you are and more just kind of about the RNG of it all. If you instead set it up as it is in currently the 24 version of this book, right? Now the grapplee or grappler rather does not have to roll at all. They have a set DC because they are that good at grappling all the time. And now it's up to the other person to try and squeeze out of it with how good they are at their, their escaping of their strength DC or whatever the DC is for the book. I can't remember off the top of my head. And then on the future, right, in the future sense, on that turn, the grapplee is being grappled, so they're trying to resist it. When you're trying to resist it, it's a saving throw. But then in future turns, you're grappled. Now, it's not trying to resist the grapple, it's trying to escape from it. So now a skill check makes more sense because you're actively doing something. And that's the reason that they changed it. Because before, Bigby's Hand was another great example where Bigby's Hand and Telekinesis, actually both spells, didn't force saving throws. It was confusing because, like, shouldn't it force a saving throw? It's a spell. Everything else forces a saving throw. No, they forced skill checks. Didn't make any sense. So the designers looked at this and said, let's just make sure it is consistent across the entire core rules. If you're trying to do something, you're making a skill check. If you're trying to resist something, you're making a saving throw. Unfortunately, skill contests kind of fall by the wayside in the sense of the core rules. Now, what we could see, and what I think might be where we see these return, is in mini game rules, right? What makes a lot of sense to me is a skill check contest when you're like, let's say you're playing Wild Beyond the Witchlight, and you're at the Witchlight Carnival, and now all of a sudden you're trying to, I don't know, play one of the carnival games where you shoot the water gun into the target and you pop the balloon first. You're actively doing something, they're actively doing something, not to each other, but to other things. And now whose check is higher matters more. That sense, right, makes a lot more for it to be a skill contest because then it's a contest. It's not resisting a grapple. It is, I'm trying to beat you in this contest right here. I think we could see them coming back in minigame rules like that, or even in the DMG for those types of things. But I actually agree with them in the terms of let's make saving throws and skill checks distinct and make sure we stick to those rules.
I agree with you that streamlining and having consistent across the whole book is important. I do miss rolling dice against somebody, and I'll probably fall back to the 2014 version for things like this, which is okay, listeners and watchers. You can do that. Don't ask Garrett.
It's not true. Actually, in the beginning of the book, it says if you use 2014 rules, they're going to come after you. Kidding.
That part is there, but I didn't read that part. I get it. I definitely do. And I'm sure a lot of tables, especially if this is their baseline, they'll never even know otherwise, and they'll never have any issue with it. And it does make sense in that. I like the fact that the guy who's really good at grappling can have a bad day.
Yeah.
And that's where them's the dice comes into play for me. And if you're really good at grappling, you do have the advantage of having a really high bonus in a lot of cases.
Yeah, listen, you're right, but you've never made a grappler build where the dice never roll above a 5 throughout an entire session, and you're like, well, I can't even do what I wanted to do. You know what I mean? Like, that's where it really becomes a problem. Sometimes the dice just hate you.
Yeah. I get it.
Yeah.
All right. So, I have already chosen the winner of this round. We went positive, negative. Garrett, give me a positive.
Oh, okay. We're doing this I don't know what the order is. I was expecting Richard to go next.
Got me
Welcome to my world.
I'm so confused.
I'm shooketh.
All right, I am going to throw out my wild one that I don't think anyone's going to really think about. And I have to flip all the way to almost the back of the book for this one.
He's going to
He's
the
getting
index.
close to what I was gonna go with.
Oh,
So
snap.
now I'm wondering here.
Is
I
it?
don't know
The
what
rules
he's
glossary
doing.
index thing? See, that's what you would think.
No,
I
I don't know. We'll see.
That's
You
not what I'm
stopped.
doing.
You stopped. Okay.
What I'm going to talk about is that
He's going to be like the druids.
one of my favorite, you're onto it. One of my favorite things about this book is what it tells us about the 2025 Monster Manual by looking at the stat blocks in
okay.
the back of the book. People think of the player's handbook and they think, I'm going to look at the player options. I don't want to look at the animals in the back of the book. Why are those even there? Other than familiars and other things like that. I get it. But why are those there? They're there for our druid friends.
Mm-hmm.
And our druid friends have suffered
They've suffered
for a long time.
at least a decade now.
And specifically, I'm going to call out one animal that has renewed my faith in wild shape as a combat option, because everyone knows I love moon druids. They're one of my favorites. And anyone who's played a moon druid in 2014 knows that from level 2 to 5, you're really good. And from level 6 to 10, you're really bad. And then from 11 to 19, you're just okay. And then at 20, you're the greatest thing in the world. And it doesn't make any sense. It's a roller coaster of emotions playing a moon druid. But not only did they redesign the moon druid so that there's nice, cool lunar theme rather than this weird pseudo elemental / wild shaping thing going on, but they also included some new stat blocks that have been revamped and reworked. Some highlights are things like now the lion and the tiger have very different play styles, right? The lion gets multi-attack, the tiger gets to hide and pounce. Very good changes to how all of these things work. But every stat block in the book, except for one, caps off at CR1. Except our friend the elephant. I love you, elephant. And here's why I love you. It's because the elephant has multi-attack. The elephant can attack twice. And I'm so happy. Before, in the 2014 book, after you get past CR2, there is not a good beast in sight for your moon druid friends. They have nothing. There's a CR3 scorpion that can attack 2 or 3 times, but it's got a plus 4 to hit. It's awful. It's bad. But the elephant right here is a CR4. It's got 2 attacks at plus 8 to hit. It does good damage. It has a bonus action attack, kind of. It's not really an attack, it's a saving throw. But it still does more damage. Or you can ignore that completely, and you can use your bonus action to cast your new, fun little Circle of the Moon spells. Or you can use them to, drink a potion now if you want. Your little bear can drink a potion. Who cares? Whatever. The point is, the elephant shows us that CR above 2, hopefully, creatures are seemingly getting redesigned so that they can attack more often, which means that the moon druid now gets to use things like Primal Strike more often and actually gets to keep up being a melee damage dealing, essentially a martial character with a little splattering of spellcasting and not lose out because of a very poor selection of beast options. And I really cannot wait to see the 2025 Monster Manual, to see all the other CR2 and 3 and 4 and 5 beasts, so I can finally play the Moon Druid of my dreams. I can finally be good at him. Oh, sorry, continue.
I like it.
Yeah, I don't have any rebuttal to this one.
No, that's
great.
really good. Yeah,
In
it's great.
fact, did you already hear about the cat?
Oh, with part, the dark vision part,
Yes,
or the
yeah.
falling part?
Did you hear the why?
About the cat?
The dark vision?
Oh no! Wait, was this a thing at
Yes.
Gen Con that I get
This
to
was
hear about?
from the media event.
Okay, whatever.
Chris Perkins came out and said the reason it didn't have dark vision, the 2014, was because it was his grandma.
His
His grandma had a cat that if the lights weren't on in the basement, it would fall down the stairs. So they had to turn the lights on for it. So he thought cats couldn't see in the dark. So when they made the book, they couldn't see in the dark.
Yeah.
That is
He's learned
wild excuse.
Over the last decade.
That is a wild
updated
excuse.
the cat.
Oh my gosh.
It was my favorite thing from the
Just
entire
that
media event.
poor visioned family cat.
Yeah, exactly. It was just that one cat. And it
And that's
ruined
just how cats
a
are.
decade of cats having dark vision for Dungeons and Dragons.
It's so funny. And I mean, you know what? Beyond just the wild shaping aspect too, I just also think it's really clean.
It's super
how
clean.
they have now the mods and the saves in with the scores. And I like another thing too. And this is going to be, I don't want to add more to my point, but I do want to add more to my point. This is really good for Moon Druids, but it's also really good for DMs. A trend that we're seeing in these stat blocks, we've seen a lot of power creep for players, right? Weapon masteries make martials better.
Mhm.
Spells didn't really get that hard of a nerf. There's still really good options there. So now everyone's going to be like, well, if all the players are getting boosted powers, right? Buffs, what is the DM going to get? Well, now the DM's going to get things like, I don't know, the elephant's ability to charge previously used to make you make a saving throw or you get knocked prone. Now, nope, no saving throw. You're just knocked prone. It just knocks you prone.
Yeah.
Wolves, you know, their whole thing with when they bite, if they're smaller creatures, they can knock them prone if they make a saving throw. Nope, now they just make them prone.
Mm-hmm.
That is a huge thing to make the monsters even more powerful and hit even harder. And I'm really happy that it's not just going to be, here's more power for the players and the DMs have fun.
Yeah.
You're already struggling to make your players challenge. You're never going to do it now. No, I think that there's some bite in these stat blocks, and I like it.
Player, to you, Richard. From now until February is going to be the best time of your life. Enjoy it while you can, because we're coming for you. Okay. So, that was your positive. Richard, give me your second positive of the evening.
So I am going to go. I'm looking at my list over here, and I think on this one, I am going to jump to one that I wasn't super excited about the first time that I heard people talk about it. When I heard, Jeremy Crawford talking about it and Chris Perkins talking about it, and I was like, I don't really care about that. But then actually having my hands on the book and reading it and everything like that, and it's another thing that I see in other books. And I saw eliminated in other games, and I was like, I'm glad they took this out because it was bloaty in Dungeons and Dragons.
I'm so intrigued. What is this?
I don't really care for it or anything like that because it seems kind of pointless anyway.
It's really selling me on the positive part of it, though.
And that is, I really enjoy where they headed with tools and crafting in this book.
Didn't I mention this to you? I was excited for it.
And I was like, don't care. Because
Okay.
tools and crafting in most games, I don't care. I'm not a crafter. I'm not huge on that thing.
Okay.
And then I play other games and I go into those games and I was like, man, I love how they have streamlined supplies and inventory in this new system because it doesn't have all this bloat of just a bunch of junk sitting in my bag that I feel like I can't use and I have no real use for. And even in building characters in the past, and I'm looking at things and I'm like, oh man, I have 3 different tools that I can choose for this character. Whoop-de-doo. What am I going to do with these 3 tools? I'm just going to pick 3 tools at random because it doesn't matter. It is not going to change my experience with this character unless I get really, really creative and my DM allows me to be super creative with what I can do here. But I really enjoy the way they have things laid out, the way they talk about artisans' tools, and actually giving you something to do with all this stuff. And like not just silly things like I'm gonna etch a picture of a dragon in the side of my crossbow every time I kill one, which is fun, and I made a graphic for it and everything like that. But now I can actually do things, and this is, like I said, something I was not excited about, and even you were excited about it, and I was just like, I'm gonna be a killjoy. I'm not excited about that. And then even Jeremy Crawford got up on stage and he's all like, I'm really excited about tools and crafting, and I hope you guys are too. And I'm like, move on. And then I got the book and I started reading it and I was all like, no, he was right. This is cool. I really like this. It's a good addition to the book. And I finally feel like now we actually have a use for some of these things. And I'm excited to go through this list now and choose what I'm going to use and what I can do with my character that gives me something, and I don't just feel like I have something kicking around in my bag for the sake of having it on a character sheet or as part of my backstory.
It's actually Garrett's fault that I was so excited about this because in the Icewind Dale campaign, Rudy was able to do so much like with wood.
Oh yeah. You did let him do a lot.
Yeah.
Listen, I've been wanting crafting rules to be better. I do agree that they're better. I do have a complaint about them.
Ooh. I'm the rebuttal.
I'm afraid
This will affect your score.
that the way that they are currently laid out, they are really incentivizing casters more than marshals with crafting. And here's what I mean when I say that. Currently, the best thing a martial character can craft is a potion of healing, right?
It's pretty good.
It is certainly, it is good, but all of the other things that they can craft, right? They could also just buy. They're not getting a huge discount from crafting it. It's a big time sink, right? And that's fine. But spellcasters can craft spell scrolls, level 1 or cantrip spell scrolls in a day. And that's incredibly potent for a spellcaster, because that means you craft, I don't know, you have a week of downtime, you craft 7 level 1 spell scrolls. Suddenly you have 7 free spell slots. That's a big boost for a class of character, right? Casters that didn't need a big boost. So that worries me, because there's nothing that powerful that a martial character can craft yet. Now, maybe the Dungeon Master's Guide will fix this with their magic item rules, because they were going to be crafting rules for magic items there. And then maybe the fighter being able to craft a flame tongue longsword makes up for the fact that a wizard with a week of downtime can double his spells at level 3, right? Maybe that'll be the case. But right now, I'm a little worried with how it's set up.
But the mason tools, you know?
Mason tools are cool, but like, what do you need a
Man,
block
the
and tackle
DC check
for?
is insane on the I think it's the masonry tools to like pry open a door or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, you can totally do this DC 20. They're all like, but you're saying there's a chance.
That's a carpenter tool thing.
Oh,
but yeah,
carpenter
still
tool. Okay, yeah. I
like
was like, yeah, I like this.
but I mean, the mason tools are a great example of what I mean. Like, so with the mason tools, right? It's a strength thing. A lot of strength characters are going to want that. Chisel, assemble, or hole into a stone. DC 10. Cool, sure.
Yeah.
Not how often is that going to really matter?
You'll find
You
out.
just wait.
And then the craft action is make a block and tackle. How great! I have a block and tackle, or I could have my spellcaster cast Bigby's Hand and be never needing any of that stuff. Versus calligrapher supplies, I can just make spell scrolls.
Yeah.
Look, man, nerds are gonna nerd.
Nerds are gonna nerd.
And I love it, and I hope more players want to utilize the crafting tools in my games, because I really like the idea.
Yeah, I do. Like I said, I went a complete.
I'm just afraid of the
changeover
spell
on that.
scroll stuff.
Yeah,
Right.
I was that person that was like, I don't care about this, and now after reading it, I'm completely hyped for it.
Like having a rogue make poisons with the poisoner's kit. Love that. Love the idea of that. Spell scrolls.
Yeah.
That's my only problem.
All right. Richard, your next negative, please.
My next negative.
I'm so confused as the order.
Oh my gosh.
There
okay.
is an order to this.
All right.
Viewers, you might have picked up on it by now.
I've
I
got
figured it
2
out
here.
now, but still.
I've got 2 here.
Well, there's 2 more to go, so use one now.
I don't know which one I should go with here. Because I don't think you're going to care about the other one, honestly.
Ooh. Wait, that I won't or he won't?
I don't.
Because I'm the judge here.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't know where you fall
Let's
on
see.
this.
Garrett's rebuttals, though, do affect your
Oh man.
points.
Always rebuttal.
Mhm.
Always be rebutting.
This is good. Let's go. Give me that big die.
Oh,
What?
he's gonna
Give me
roll
that
for
big
his next
die.
choice.
Oh, there
I'm
it
gonna
is.
roll for choice.
Really
on here.
selling his convictions here, isn't he?
All right. Okay.
10.
Okay.
Right in the middle.
Right in the middle. All right. So okay, so this is another one that kind of, I guess, can link to my other thing, which was the skill contest going away and me feeling like I'm losing something in that portion of play style on that thing. And that was reading through a lot of things, specifically things like feat. They have done dirty on some of these,
On
and
some of the
I'm
feats.
missing things. What did they do to Keen Mind?
You don't like Keen Mind?
I don't like Keen.
Are
So
you serious?
I like Keen Mind. It's fine,
Do me a favor, summarize the key. I haven't actually gotten to this one yet.
but do you have it pulled up?
I
here?
have it pulled up. You want to read it for
Yeah,
you?
go ahead and read Keen
Okay,
Mind.
so it says you gain the following benefits. Ability score increase. Increase your intelligence score by 1 to a maximum of 20.
Cool.
You gain lore knowledge. Choose one of the following skills: Arcana, History, Investigation, Nature, or Religion.
Okay.
If you lack proficiency in the chosen skill, you gain proficiency in it. And if you already have proficiency in it, you gain expertise in it.
Okay. It's good.
And then quick study, you can take the study action as a bonus action.
Cool. What time is it?
I hate this.
Why?
Hold on. Building a character for stats. I love anything that gives me expertise. Plus, you get your +1. But what the heck? I want to know which way north is.
Yeah, which way is true north?
But so here's
DM, what time
of
is
day
it right
is it?
now? I don't know. It's like
Here's-
noonish. No, what time is it?
here is the problem with the Keen Mind feat in the 2014 book.
I'm just gonna give this one to Richard. No,
Calm down. There are two big problems with the Keen Mind feat that I think they've really fixed here. The first is it bullies DMs. Let's
Yes.
be honest.
Absolutely.
What
What
DM,
are you doing to me?
What
I get
DM
one joy in life here.
What DM is always going to know what time it is in their game world? That is such an abstract thing. And two, it is an entire feat. It is an entire level of your character that you're dedicating to something a pocket watch and a compass can do. You don't need a keen mind. You
And-
have a pocket watch.
It's up
And
here.
yet the role players amongst us choose it time after
Yeah.
time again.
And why would I ever take Observant if I can't read lips?
You're gonna tell me one of the greatest wizards of our age, Caleb Widowgast, should not have taken Keen Mind?
Mm-hmm.
That
I'm telling you that
spell.
this
And what's the
version
point
of
of
Keen-
Observant if I can't
I'm
read
telling
lips?
you that this
I'm telling
version
you
of
right now.
Keen
Well, I'm off
Mind-
of Keen Lips. I'm on Observant now. If I can't read lips, I don't care how observant I am.
Oh, so my numbers get a little bigger. They
Do
go a
you
little
know?
higher.
Do you know how to read lips in D&D? You make
If
a
I have
perception
Observant,
check.
yes,
You make a
I
perception
do.
check, and that's what Observant makes better for you. Your perception. It takes things. Both of those feats took things in the game that did not mechanically matter, and made them into things that now mechanically matter that also can still do what you wanted them to do. You know what check it would be to remember what time it is? An intelligence check, and now you're better at it because of Keen Mind.
So is this throughout all of the feats that they took everything that was kind of like ambiguous and made it just stat increases?
Not completely,
Not everything,
but
but
a
a
lot
lot
of it
them
was,
are
yes.
streamlined. Yes,
pretty
yeah.
much. So this is basically it. If a feat did not have a mechanical benefit
Mhm.
to a character, they have made it into a mechanical benefit. And most ways, they've also done that by preserving things that you could previously do. Yes, Observant doesn't allow you to automatically read lips, but it gives you expertise and perception and lets you do it as a bonus action, which is what you should be doing to read lips anyway, is roll that perception check. Like, that's the point of checks. In fact, I'm confused as to how your first point and now this point are not completely conflicting, because your first point was I want to roll more dice, and this point is why am I having to roll dice for these things?
No,
It's the
I want
opposite.
some innate abilities that give some of these feats a little bit more soul.
The innate ability is that you
That's
can do it
what I
faster than
want.
other people can.
And
He wants the
numbers are not
expertise.
innate abilities.
He wants the expertise and to know what time it is.
Exactly.
It's
Is that
just-
broken? Get in the comments.
You
You gonna tell me that I'm wrong?
You wanted to roll more dice. You get to roll more dice with these feats. That's the point.
Richard, I can't wait till we sit down at the table and you say, "Hey, DM, what time of day is it?" And I say, "I don't know, roll me some dice." And you're like 3, and I'm like, it could be 10 in the morning. It's dark.
Yeah, it's dark
When
outside.
was the last time you guys walked outside in the middle of the day without your phone and was like, I know exactly what time
I
it
can
is."
tell you right now, their characters have never walked outside with their phone.
Yeah,
That's
exactly.
my point. My point is, though, is like, it doesn't make any sense. Just have a pocket watch. It's fine.
Yeah, no, like I said, I just I
One of my positive is how they've taken feats like that and made them useful.
His next positive
the
is Keen
clinical
Mind got
thing.
changed.
Yeah, Keen Mind got changed. That's my new positive. No, I just like I said, it's one of those things there where when I read it, I like reread it like 3 times because I was in disbelief. I was shocked that that they
impossible.
had taken away that, and then I started looking for more, of it, and I noticed that like not everything like we said, but it's just one of those things that like to me it just feels like it feels clinical almost, and like they're
Sure.
taking away something that felt like it gave you a little bit more something like personal.
It was a
and
unique
a
aspect of your character.
Yeah.
I mean, the last rebuttal I'll say to this, because I don't want to go on too long about it, is that you can still just know what time it is. Like, you could just say, I'm a smart guy, my intelligence is high, do I know what time it is?
Yeah.
Yes. You don't need a feat to give you that. The fact that you had to spend a feat for that before is probably really more of the problem. That should just be something a smart character knows, right? And also, this fixes one other issue I've always had, which is people in the middle of combat trying to extract as much info as they can without spending an action. Everyone's had, if you've DM'd a table, everyone's had a player that's like, DM, what do I know? Tell me everything I've ever learned about a manticore right now because I'm fighting a manticore. And if a DM, by the rules, what you're supposed to do is say, use your action to roll me a check. But no one wants to do that.
I would never ask for that.
But that's
Yeah.
the rules. And that's the rules in this book too. And you know what the Keen Mind does? Is it lets you roll that check as a bonus action, so you could still use an action like normal. So it lets you, as a DM, set that hard line of saying, let's actually use the rules. If you want to be able to do that on the fly, or another great example, the bad guy is trying to run away and he just did a successful stealth check. He's hidden. And I'm saying, well, I want to look for him. Okay, looking for him is an action, right? So it should cost your whole action. But most tables would say, oh, that's not fair. I should be able to just see him and then stab him, right? Well, now if you want to do that, take the observant feat, because you can look for a bonus action and then stab him as your action. That is what I like about the feats.
Yeah.
The feats make the mechanics cleaner, and you still get to have the flavor. All you have to do is just say, hey, DM, can I have this as a character? Because I have an 18 intelligence. Do I need to know what time of day it is? Like, I could just think, right? Any reasonable DM will be like, yes, of course you're going to have that. Why would you have to take a whole feat, a whole character level, just to say I'm my own watch?
And I would totally do that.
Just know I'm never telling you exactly what time it is ever again.
Oh, jeez.
I do, before we leave the subject of feats, I do have to say that I do like the way that they've organized feats now. The subcategories and the categories of feats.
I
and
love
how
that.
they can take, like, you have the
Yes.
different levels. Like, that's really cool. I think that was necessary because there are some feats that are just insane if you have open feats. Like,
Yeah.
if it's just open game on whatever feat you can choose at whatever level.
Variant human, take sharpshooter level 1, have
I
fun,
know, it's
right?
insane. So I really like the way that they've organized feats and everything like that. So they've done feats really, really well.
And I love that general feats
So.
give you a +1 to an ability score.
Yep,
So you
yep.
don't have to be like, man, I really want to take Keen Mind, but all I get to do is like know the time. I don't get to, but now I get to do both. Like, see, I like that now every feat can also bump an ability.
Garrett, negative.
Negative.
Da-da-da.
Okay. Let's see. I got so caught up with the feats that I completely forgot what my next negative.
I hope
be.
you don't hit mine because I have 2 more negatives and I'm only
Two
going to be
more.
using
only
one.
one more. Okay.
Oh, you had extras in the chamber. I like it.
Yeah, I have an extra in the chamber. Well, I had to change things up now. So, but I don't think he's going to hit mine. I don't think he's going to
That
hit
feels
it.
like a
'Cause
challenge.
It's way too
Niche.
very specific.
All right. I do have one negative. This is very nitpicky though.
So is
This
mine.
should tell you that I actually like most of this book. There's not a lot of negatives for me to hit, but I'm going to hit on backgrounds for a second.
Oh,
And
He didn't take
get
it.
that off the
He
table.
didn't take it. Was that you? It was in your eye.
so a lot of people are going to look at the background system and think the negative, it's not going to be what I think is the negative. But a lot of people are going to say the negative is that there's no custom background option. And I get it. A lot of people want to be able to do a custom background because they want to be able to, have their cake and eat it too. They want to pick their stat increases and the feat they want and not have to worry about any of the weird rules to it. Personally, I kind of like that, you can only get Magic Initiate Cleric if you're also an Acolyte. Like, I kind of like that because if you have custom backgrounds, what's going to happen is everybody's going to say, oh, well, the best feat in the game for an origin character is Musician. So I'm going to pick Musician with every character I play, regardless of whether my background says I should know how to play an instrument. And then I'm just going to pick whatever ability score my character would normally have. And that just means that backgrounds are no longer going to become any flavor or part of the character. It's just going to become a little package of mechanical bonuses that you're going to customize to your heart's desire without having to make any tough choices at character building.
Every
And
meta build is going to have like
Right,
the one you
exactly.
pick.
Yeah, the one that you
And
would be.
and I don't like that. So I'm happy that they actually have it a little restricted. But they need 4 more. They need 4 more backgrounds. And you know why? Because there are every single background gives 3 stats, right, as an option for you to choose. I don't remember which 4 there are exactly off the top of my head. But there are 4 3-stat combinations that do not have a representative currently. And it's because they cut 4 for, I'm assuming, space.
Yeah.
Right? Because in the playtest, there were 20 backgrounds. There are 16 now.
Mm-hmm.
We're 4 short. There needs to be 4 more. Where are they? And like, I get it. You got to save space. But there's a whole section in the back here, right here, 2 pages, 2 whole pages about the multiverse. That should be in the DMG.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
This
that could
doesn't need
in
to
the
be here.
DMG.
True.
You know what you could have used these 2 pages for? 2 more background pages, which are 2 backgrounds each. That's 4 backgrounds.
They really wanted that multiverse.
Yeah.
in
It
there,
would
though.
have been a perfect. I know they did.
I
but,
agree. It
like,
should be. I know maybe it's important that the players know
There's
about
got to
it
be
too and
something
stuff.
else that you could have cut from here to include those.
No,
And then-
but I think Garrett's right. It's more important to have that in the DMG. I don't need it here.
You don't
Yeah.
need it here.
No, you don't
And
need it here.
Just 2 pages. You could have had 20 backgrounds. Every single one of the stat spreads could have been covered. You'd have been perfectly fine. Why? Why instead did they cut 2 pages of backgrounds for the multiverse?
Yep.
I don't get it. Because really, the people's problems with backgrounds is not that they're limited by having to pick a background instead of doing custom. It's because there's just not enough of them, right? I mean, I would buy a whole book of backgrounds tomorrow if they said, here's 100 pages of just backgrounds for your
Just
character.
backgrounds? Yeah.
Just backgrounds and origin feats. Here you go. Let's do it. Like, I like the system. I just need more options.
Okay.
And we will get more.
Oh, I know.
Yeah,
All the
we'll get
supplementary
more.
stuff.
I
They're
know we
going to
will.
keep
Yeah,
getting
we'll get
more.
more.
And maybe that's part of it is they're like, yeah, we're not going to get another chance at throwing in some multiverse into the PA, Player's Handbook. But we will get a chance to keep dumping out more backgrounds.
But they could have dumped the multiverse out other places too. And the thing about it is they were so meticulous with how they did their synergies, right?
Yeah.
There are 10 species. There are, 48? Yes, 48 subclasses. There's 4 for each class. It's all very nice and uniform.
Yeah, it's all balanced.
So
well.
then why are there
then-
4 missing backgrounds with 4 stat combos that don't get represented?
When they had 20 and they took
And
them out.
it's just like everything else is just so like, I mean, like, look at the races or the species, right? They're all in pairs. You have Aasimar and Tiefling as like the heaven and hell.
Yeah.
You've got Dragonborn and Goliath as the giants versus dragons, right? You've got dwarves and elves because Tolkien made that a thing for everyone forever. Humans and orcs, halflings and gnomes. You've got all of the, like perfect like kind of pairs going on. And they even said in the subclasses, your wizard subclass, evocation versus abjuration is offense versus defense, illusion and divination or deception and truth. They're so good about making this all so thematic and clean and concise, and then they screwed us in 4 backgrounds. Sorry.
No, don't be sorry. That's
Sorry,
the whole
just-
point.
Sorry, Watsy.
Sorry. Didn't
I'm
need to be
sorry
so
to somebody.
negative.
I'm sorry to whoever cut those backgrounds, but I'm coming for you.
All right. Garrett, give me a negative.
Oh, we're doing negatives again?
Do you know why?
Why?
Because I don't want to end on a negative note. I want to end on a positive
I
one.
like that. I like that a lot. I was not prepared for
I also knew that.
All right, here's my last negative.
Would you like to hold your spot in initiative?
No, I would not. Because that's not a thing you can do in 5th edition at all. 2014, you couldn't do it either.
It hasn't changed.
Hasn't changed. Don't do that. Don't try and do that. Here's my other negative. All right. And this is really small. The language section of this book is confusing to me. So, in languages, first off, every character knows 3 languages. Seems like a lot. Love you guys, but like, how many people in America do you think are bilingual, much less trilingual? 3 languages.
These are better versions of ourselves.
Right. These are way better versions of ourselves, right? Beyond that, though, they have really limited rare languages, which I do kind of like because I think a rare language should be rare. But what I don't like is that, did you know there is no way for you to make a drow that knows Undercommon in this book?
No.
You have to pick from the standard language table, which does not have Undercommon. Undercommon's on the rare language table. And you know what? The elf species under drow does not give you any extra languages. The only way to make a drow that has a rare language, there are 2 ways from what I can see. Another reason why it's only 2 ways is because they also removed the linguist feat, which gave you languages. Why would you limit rare languages and then take out the only feat that gives them to you? The only 2 ways that you can make a drow with Undercommon is to make a rogue or a ranger. A ranger at level, 1 or is it 2? I believe it's level 2. Level 2, Deft Explorer, languages. You know 2 languages of your choice from the languages tables. tables plural.
So you
Yep.
can choose. Yeah.
So ranger, drow can know undercommon. Great. Rogue. Let's skip over to the rogue real quick. We look at their thieves can't feature, right? Thieves can't. You pick up various languages in communities where you applied your roguish talents. You know the thieves can't and one other language of your choice, which you choose from the language tables in chapter 2. Rogues can know undercommon. But if you're a drow wizard, even if you grew up in the Underdark, you don't know undercommon. If you're a if you're playing a 2014 species like a Dwergar, you can't know undercommon. It's weird.
Yeah, that's weird.
And it's not just that too. The whole, let's look at the rare languages table real quick as I flip through this for great radio. Who doesn't love, listening to people flip through pages? Woohoo! Here we go. Abyssal, not that overly common, but there's abyssal tieflings now. Hope you're a ranger or rogue because you don't know your own tongue. Celestial, Asmar?
Yeah.
Nope. Got to be a ranger or a rogue. Deep speech, sure. Nobody really knows that. Druidic, druids know that by default. That's fine. Infernal, back to tieflings.
Back to tieflings. Yeah.
Hope you are a ranger or a rogue. Primordial for Genasi in the future, or for the giants here because they have that kind of elemental flair. Nope. Got to be a ranger or a rogue. Sylvan, undercommon. It's just like, that's weird to me. And it would have made sense if, for example, we had 4 more backgrounds and one of them gave you like the linguist feat as an origin feat,
Yeah.
right? That would have made sense. Anthropologist, origin feat, linguist, boom. Now all of a sudden, there's another background for you and also fixes the language problem. It's just a really weird case of just like, how do I get a rare language?
This almost feels like one of those things they'll touch on in like an errata, but we're judging the book as it is
Right.
Yeah.
now. And yeah, that feels like a big
That seems
miss.
like something that was overlooked, and a big overlook too.
Yeah. I get that they wanted to take the culture out of species inherently because culture and ancestry are different things.
You should at least have
But
the option to
Right. You got
to
to
lean into it.
give at the very least give linguist as an origin feat.
Yeah.
So that way if you wanted to know more languages, you could do that.
Yeah.
Like
no,
that should have been
would
an
make
easy
sense.
option, but
Mhm.
it's not here. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
That's
Wow.
my nitpick of the day.
All right, Richard, your last negative.
This one is also very nitpicky, and it is something that could also be revealed as an option in the DMG when we get it. But I noticed that it is left out in here, and there is absolutely no mention of milestone leveling. It's just experience-based leveling. When you go to the section on leveling, they talk about experience, and they give you the different experience levels at which you gain a level. Full stop. They don't mention milestones as an option. They don't talk about milestones really being a thing, which I thought was a weird omission, because a lot of people play with milestones rather than experience.
Right. Well, I mean, we've
never done
used XP.
experience.
Right.
When we played in the game with Garrett, we didn't do experience, did we?
No, we did not.
Yeah, we didn't do experience in that one. And I don't know that it's because it's something that they don't want to talk about in this book because it's not for the players. Is it because it's for the dungeon master itself?
Yeah, I think they have to touch on this in the DMG, right?
Are they going to talk about it as a possible option or anything like that?
Well, why did they bring up XP but not milestone as an option? If that's
I'm not sure, but yeah, you can see there's the XP table right there, which they give you all that, and it would be a very small blurb where they can talk about like this is how you can approach milestones as a possible option for a game, and that's really all they have to say because this is just very straightforward. It's just experience points, right?
Yeah. He's right.
And it's just an odd omission to the book that I just I don't understand why, and that's what makes me wonder: is it just this book? Are we going to see it in the DMG? And I think we probably are. If I had to guess, that would be something that they would include there. But it just seems like they're going to tell us about experience leveling in this book. Why not tell us about the other option that is something that a lot of tables choose? Because I greatly prefer it. Milestones is something that I would much rather have than experience-based leveling. I don't want to play in an experience-based leveling game most of the time. I like the way milestones work. Is it a little bit more work to try and balance things out? And it also goes back to that whole like the type of games that we like to play. Me personally, I'm a person that likes milestone leveling because not every game I want to be like all combat all the time. Right? And I actually prefer non-combat games. I prefer role playing over combat in almost every situation that I'm in.
You finally find the Tome of Strahd, you level up at the end.
Yeah, and it's just an odd omission.
I mostly agree with you, but I'm gonna play devil's advocate anyway because I really want to win this.
Yeah.
The reason they don't include milestone leveling is it's not on the character sheet. There is nothing on the character sheet for where you put milestones because milestones are a thing that DMs keep track of.
Yep.
And there are a place on character sheets for experience. So they had to mention it because otherwise, if you're a new player, you look at the character sheet, you say, what's XP? Well, we got to exclude it. We got to include it now. But there's nothing on here that says milestone because that's a DM thing.
Yeah.
So it's in the DMG because it doesn't have to be here.
Solid, 100% agree with you. Back to his devil's advocate. I wish they added a blurb.
Yeah.
Sure.
That's it.
Yeah, I would have
Other
loved
than
one
that,
line. Yeah.
I 100%.
That's what I'm
you're
saying.
right. That's why they included
what
it.
I was looking for when I was reading over that thing, because it was one of the very first things that I hit. Was like just a small blurb that
a yes
says,
and
hey,
not a no.
yes, and sometimes games run on milestones. This is something that would be discussed with your GM as to how they work. And it, like, to your point of, with the backgrounds and including extra pages, it would take literally a very small paragraph to kind of just tell you that there is another way. That
Are you
some
looking
games
through
have.
trying to find it?
I actually looked in the index to see if milestone came up anywhere.
Yeah.
Could not find it.
That's the first thing that I did.
Could not
was
find
I
it.
jumped to the index, and then I read through that section a couple more times to see if I missed it.
No, I looked for milestone, couldn't find it.
And
Then
I
I looked for
couldn't find
level,
it.
found level, and then got to the XP part. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I can think of is like, just
Odd.
it's maybe it's just going to be a codified variant rule or alternate rule rather than more of a presented option, right?
Yeah. Well, I would just like it
as
like to show a new player a game. I would like it to be there to say that like this doesn't have to just be a numbers game.
Yeah. No, you're right.
This could be something different.
In some games, you can ignore this part of your character sheet.
Yeah.
You are going to be, DM will be leveling up based on accomplishments, achievements, and things you've done. Richard.
That was my final dislike.
But what's your final positive?
My final positive. It's a toss-up between two different ones. The one of them is the easy answer. The other one, actually, I think they're both really easy answers. And that is going back to that whole, I've read a lot of systems. I've read a lot of books that have had very, very specific broken sections. And one of them that I've even talked about in a review of a book was a broken section. And that is the rules glossary of this book.
Oh, I hate you.
I love the rules glossary,
It's
specifically because
great.
I've had recent books that I want to reference a rule. And I want to know the description of this rule, and I want to know how it works. And I have absolutely no idea because they talk about that rule in one very small section on one page. It is a one-sentence description, and I have to go down a Reddit rabbit hole to make sure that my interpretation of that sentence is what it is, because there is no rules glossary for me to reference, especially not one as robust as the rules glossary in this book. It is beautiful. It has everything that I could want in a rules glossary. I love it. Everything is well laid out. Everything is well written, well described. And this is something, like I said, it has been lacking in books that I have read as of recent. So I'm happy to see it here presented in a way that is actually helpful for players and DMs alike. The rules glossary, love it.
Oh, I have no rebuttal. My next one was going to be layout of the entire book, which included rules glossary. So I really don't have a rebuttal here, but I do have a backup. So we'll get to it. But yeah, I agree with you. The rules glossary is just great. I mean, hard to argue with it because it's just so much easier to find things.
Yeah, it's
right?
so easy.
If you need a general rule, check, go to the glossary. And if you need something even more minute than that, you have an index. It's just so much easier.
And specifically, the index is actually super useful in this book.
Yes.
And I have encountered bad indexes very recently that have been so unhelpful. But the
Unusable.
index, unusable actually, yes. But the rules glossary in this, coupled with the index, I like it.
They talked a lot about when they were previewing this book about like having basically layout and design consultants that they worked with on the book. And, you know, for example, the reason why all the class tables are on the second page of the class instead of the first one is because it was intimidating to new players and things like that. Just the whole layout, from the art to the way things are formatted to the index and the glossary to, you know, the order of the chapters, is just chef's kiss.
Love it.
Fantastic. You know, regardless of what you might think about some of the, you know, changes to the rules and mechanics or whatever, I don't think anybody who looks at this book can deny it is a beautiful book from start to finish.
The rules glossary I want to touch on a little bit, because one of the very first things I did when I opened up this book was flip to the back to look at this rules glossary I had heard so much about. And I probably will print out, photocopy, whatever I got to do to get these behind my DM screen, because I don't always want to pull up the whole book, but I do want that information ready at hand at any moment. It's great. It's really good info. And there's been many times over, you know, of course, of running games and stuff where I just wanted something real quick, and knowing it's all there, alphabetical order, everything, chef's kiss, good to go. Thanks, WOTC. All right. Anything else? Or are you putting a button on your rules glossary?
That's it.
Positive.
Yeah, that's my positive.
Garrett, how do you dethrone Richard's rules glossary bombshell?
I could talk about the art that is fantastic about this whole book. I could talk about how every single subclass and class option has beautiful illustrations, so you know exactly what you're getting when you sign up for it. Talk about all the cool spells, the new spells. I could talk about things like balance issues, where they take some features and turn them into spells, or take some spells and turn them into features. All great stuff. But instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give a little love to a very specific character archetype that WOTC did not give any love to for about a decade.
Oh, I think I know where you're going.
Instead, I'm going to talk about what was clearly the worst class in the game until this book dropped. I'm going to talk about our friend the monk.
There we go.
I knew he was.
I was
going
actually
there.
starting to worry I was wrong. I was like, is he about to say like the Ranger?
First off, the Ranger was never the worst class and still isn't. Shut up. We'll talk about the Ranger when we talk about the review.
Oh, I'm so excited for next
like the
episode. I
Ranger.
want to hear who you think's the worst class now.
I will talk about it.
I'm excited for this.
All right,
Tune in next week, 2 p.m. Eastern.
What I do think the best martial class, and not just that, I think legitimately might be better than some casting classes, is the monk. The monk is so improved. Whether it be the way that they took features of the monk and removed the need for focus points to fuel them, whether it be because of these ridiculous action costs to do some effects that were very minimal at best, or whether it be both, or whether it be the redesigned subclasses, whatever the case is, every bit of this monk is like perfection. They took the core class and they made it better. The scaling now works. Your focus points make more sense. Deflect attack is so much better than deflect missile was. And then you look at the subclasses. Shadow and elements play so differently than they did before. And not only do they play differently, they function, which is not something they did in the 2014 rules. If you wanted to play a warrior of the elements, if you wanted to play your favorite bender from Avatar: The Last Airbender, you couldn't do it with a monk. You were playing a sorcerer or something else. Now you can do it with the monk. It's just better every bit of the way through it. And also, the capstone is fantastic. It's got one of the best, maybe the best capstone in the game now. And the way that unarmed strikes have changed in the rules, allowing you to basically grapple or push depending on what you're doing, and the way that now Tavern Brawler and the Grappler feat work. A monk can do things on the battlefield that casters can't dream of doing, right? There's examples throughout the internet of people who play tested this. I don't know how can I reference someone else's like channel? Is that a
Absolutely, totally.
Yeah.
So anyone who likes optimization videos knows who Treant Monk is. Chris over at Treant Monk did a play test where he played the Elements Monk alongside Pack Tactics and D4 Deep Dive.
Now, Pack Tactics we don't talk about.
All right, no more. But he played an Elements Monk, and the very last encounter of that playtest, which they do have online that you can watch, was a beholder, right, where the other two characters are playing casters, completely shuts them off, and they're on a bridge. They can't get there. But you know what an Elements Monk can do? It can fly without having to be magic. So he picked both of them up, he flew around, and the whole encounter was now doable for them because the monk exists. I love this monk. I don't know how we could do an entire podcast about this monk and I would still be talking about how much I love it an hour and a half later.
We plan to.
I cannot wait to talk about this.
We will
more.
absolutely have you on for that then.
Yes, it is my favorite class in the book. I don't see a problem with it. I don't look at any of these things and I think, man, I really wish this was different. I don't. Every single thing I like.
So I still need to deep dive through everybody, but cursorily, like going through one read over everybody, I actually think I agree with you that it's now my favorite class in the book. Doesn't mean it's going to be like
Sure.
my favorite class to play, but just surface
Right.
level, it's so,
so
good.
So
in
good.
fact, when we were getting book signings at Gen Con, they asked me what I was most excited for in this new version of the book. And I said monk. Full stop.
It's I mean, like, just even things like uncanny metabolism and like perfect focus, now they have these features where when you roll initiative, you can just gain a benefit rather than having to use an action for something just to make the class function better. Like, that is so nice. That is something you don't really see in any other classes, and now we get it here, and we could see it in other, future design spaces. Everything about it's great, and it's, you're right. I also don't think I'm going to play a monk first time I play a game
Right.
with this book. I might even play it the second time, but I'm definitely going to play one eventually. And I love every build in my head for it because I want to play every one of these monks. All 4 of them look great.
Richard and I harp constantly about how it's not about the combat for us or the meta builds. It's about the role play. And the way they did monk, it's the perfect meld of both, where we have all the theatrics
you
we
have
could
all the
ever
theatrics
want,
that you wanted.
and it's mechanically backed up.
You
Yep,
can still run across
mechanically
the
backed
water
up,
and
yeah.
all up the walls, and you can do all your slow falls and
Mhm.
your stunning strikes and everything. And it's just
Redirecting energy and
it's so good.
every
Yeah.
single thing. Like,
There are 2 subclasses that I'm super excited to play in this entire book. The first one being the Psionic Fighters. I love Psionics, period. Psionics Handbook was one of my favorite books from way back when. I played a Soul Knife as a rogue for a
Yeah, you
long
did.
time, and I loved it. So Psionic Fighter really jumped out to me. Super great.
I'm pretty sure you played a Soul Knife in our
Yes.
Icewind Dale
Yeah,
game,
it was the Icewind
right?
Dale game.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that one jumped out at me as my very first, this subclass is my favorite thing on here. The second one was right here, and that was the Warrior of the Open Hand.
Really? Wow.
The Warrior of the Open Hand, I looked through the monk and I was like, man, monk is so good now. It is so improved now. And I had a drunken monk that I was going to play for the last campaign that I ended up, ditching. If I was going to build a monk today, it would be the Warrior of the Open Hand. This is my number 2 in the entire book as far as subclasses that I am itching to play right now. Just monks in general, I can't argue against it. They did monks
So good.
great in this book. So good. Love what I'm seeing here, and I can't wait to play one. It is high up on my list of the next thing that I want to play. Like I said, my top 2 right now are that Psionic Fighter and the Warrior of the Open Hand. Those are my top 2 that I want to hit right now. So yeah, can't argue with it. Monk is solid.
rad. Well, I don't want to sit on monks too long because we will at some point. It's not going to be this week, next week, of course, and then we got a couple other things we have to cover. But we do plan on going through, and every once in a while we're going to start doing episodes where we just deep dive into classes as we go. So 100%, we'll make sure we get you back on
Oh, I can't wait.
for monk, and then we'll discuss if you want to come on for any more.
I'll come on for anything, anything. Well, yeah.
All right. How do you guys feel?
So yeah, this was weird. I have not like this caused me to like make my list like I was jumping all over the place.
Once he
going
reveals the winner, I want to
crazy.
hear some of the stuff that
It
you
was
have that I
going
didn't
crazy.
get to. I don't want him to get in.
Yeah,
fights.
I only have two. I basically I
Don't
had
talk
another
about it yet,
just like
though.
another like on
Yeah.
here.
All
But,
right.
yeah, we didn't
So-
get on those.
First, we had your
Oh, jeez.
overall positive about like chapter 1 and just the general like playing the game. We had your weapon masteries and stuff like that.
Yep.
I gave this one to Richard. Starting the book with how to play the game is just so important to me. Do I think weapon masteries just in general is more it's a bigger deal? It really is. But in my entire biased opinion, just starting the dang book with how to play it is impactful for the new players.
Sure.
More than a weapon mastery will be starting the game. Now we kind of shift from here on for a while. You had skill contest and your spell changes and some of the stuff there. This negative I gave to you. It's been so long, I actually don't even remember why. But I remember you pointed out something, and I was like,
I
you know
wanna
what?
see this page
He's
when we're
right.
done
About the
here.
skill
Yeah,
points.
because I just want to see.
Is that what it was?
Was it skill checks or what you do? Skill saving throws or what get done to you?
Yeah, his and you
Yeah.
had a really good rebuttal for
Yeah.
his, and it
all
won
about
me
the
more to your
rebuttal, man.
side. And the spell changes weren't enough. That's what it
Right.
was. They should have done a little bit more. You were absolutely right. You were also right when it came to these like animal stats and the stat blocks at the end of the book versus the tools and crafting. And while I'm very excited about the tools and crafting, having those available for your druid players right in the book without having to wait for the marshmallow or anything like that, but also of what's to come.
Well, I can't wait.
Huge. Love it.
Also, real quick side, the green dragon stat block from Gen Con.
Oh,
Yeah.
the one they
Oh,
previewed.
it looks
Yeah.
so
Oh,
good.
man,
that looks really
Ugh,
cool.
Continue.
Keen mind.
Stop, please.
And the removal of the 4 backgrounds.
Yes.
I gave it to you. I originally gave it to Richard. Then I put an X over it, added a sad face because I wanted to give it to Keen Mind so badly. But at the end of the day, the backgrounds and just the nice roundness of having the 4 more
needs 4
won me
more.
over.
Yeah,
XP
I want
leveling
symmetry.
and not including the milestones, and then the languages not inherently being, easily
Learned.
available
Yeah.
to species that should at least be able to get it if they want it. I gave it to you because
I have to agree with on the languages.
milestone. It's huge.
Because
that's a big one.
huge oversight.
And milestones, it's gonna be in the DMG. I wish it was here in a
it's gonna
blurb,
be in the
but the
DMG.
languages
The
is
languages is a
huge.
huge oversight.
They
I
need
don't
to
get
add
that.
linguist feat as an origin feat. Like
And-
it needs to happen.
And last, we had the
understand.
rules glossary versus the monk. And the monk is so precious and
yeah, I
it's
know.
so good. But the rules glossary, it is so beneficial to me
Yeah.
personally every time we ever play this game.
This is my
going
fault for
forward.
going second because I really wanted to do rules glossary.
But the
too.
monk's awesome.
It is great, but I did.
Like I
wanna do
said,
rules
favorite
glossary.
class, but that's
That's a good.
that's a good one to combat that. So if you've been following the math at home, that's Richard with 2, Garrett with 4, and Garrett wins.
Yeah.
He did it.
Look at all the circles and X's.
So that has been some things we like and some things we don't like in the 2024 revision of the Player's Handbook. Thank you, Garrett, for joining us today.
course. Yes,
You'll be
thank
joining
you,
us
thank
again
you.
next week. For anyone who wants our review, tune in 2 p.m. Eastern next week. But for now, I've been Tyler,
I've been Richard.
And I've been Garrett.
and we've been
True Strike.
Triple, we did it!
Woo!
Yeah.
I almost didn't say true stuff.
Hey, Adventures. Thanks again for joining us today. Please be sure to give us a follow on your favorite podcasting platforms and YouTube. If there's any questions you'd like to write into the show, you can hit us up on X, Threads, or Instagram. New episodes release every Tuesday at 2 p.m. Eastern. Thank you for listening to True Strike.